They asked for aid, but the Deathworlders of Earth came instead. The Galactic Council building floated in the darkness of space like a massive jewel. Inside its gleaming halls, representatives from 47 different alien species gathered for an emergency session. The air hummed with dozens of translation devices working overtime as anxious voices filled the chamber. Ambassador Kelnara stood at the center platform, her body trembling. She was a Velthian, tall and slender with pale blue skin and delicate wings that reflected light like stained glass. Right now, those wings hung limp with exhaustion and fear. She had been traveling for 3 days straight without sleep, racing to bring her plea to the council before it was too late. Honored members of the council, her voice came out as a whisper at first, then grew stronger. My people are dying. The Kraith swarm has attacked 6 of our colonies in the past month. 3 are already gone, completely destroyed. The other 3 won't last much longer. She pressed a button on her device, and holographic images appeared in the air above the assembled aliens. The images showed horror. Cities burning, Velthian families running in panic through streets while massive insect-like creatures chased them down. The Kraith were nightmares made real. Each one the size of a small vehicle with blade-like limbs that could cut through metal, and armor-plated bodies that shrugged off most weapons. We are not warriors, Kelnara continued, her voice breaking. We are scholars, artists, traders. We never developed strong militaries because we believed the council would protect us. We trusted in peace. She looked around the chamber at faces that wouldn't meet her eyes. Now our children are being slaughtered. Our elderly are being torn apart. We need help, please. We're not asking for soldiers to fight for us. Just send medical teams, send supplies, send ships to evacuate the survivors before there are no survivors left to save. The chamber fell silent. Council Chair Moravin, an ancient being whose reptilian face showed lines of age and wisdom, closed his 3 eyes and sighed deeply. He had served on the council for 90 years and had seen many tragedies. But this was different. The Kraith were not just invaders. They were exterminators. Ambassador Kelnara, Moravin spoke slowly, carefully. The council understands your pain. But the situation is complicated. The Kraith are extremely dangerous. Any ships we send might be destroyed. Medical teams would need military protection. And that protection would need to be substantial. The costs, both in lives and resources, would be enormous. What he didn't say, but everyone understood, was simpler and crueler. Nobody wanted to risk their own people to save the Velthians. It was safer to offer sympathy and do nothing. Kelnara's wings drooped further. She had expected this, feared it. But hearing it spoken aloud still felt like a physical blow. Her species was being abandoned, left to die because saving them was inconvenient and dangerous. Then we are doomed, she whispered. My people will be extinct within 2 months. I hope the council finds it was worth the price of your safety. She turned to leave the platform, her shoulders shaking with suppressed sobs. The representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some looked guilty. Most looked relieved that they wouldn't have to risk anything. Then a voice rang out from the back of the chamber. A human voice. We'll go. Every head turned. The human delegation sat in the observer section. Not yet full members of the council. Humans had only invented faster-than-light travel 3 months ago, and were still considered newcomers to galactic civilization. Most species barely paid attention to them yet. Commander Jake Peterson stood up. He was tall for a human with broad shoulders and short dark hair starting to gray at the temples. His uniform was dark blue with patches and insignia that meant nothing to most aliens in the room. Beside him, Lieutenant Lisa Morgan stood as well. She was younger with her brown hair pulled back tightly and sharp green eyes that were already calculating logistics on her datapad. Moravin's scales rippled with surprise. Commander Peterson, with all respect to your species, you have only been in space for a very short time. The Kraith are beyond anything your people have encountered. They have destroyed military forces from species that have been spacefaring for thousands of years. Jake walked down toward the main floor, his boots clicking on the polished stone. I understand that, Chair. But Ambassador Kelnara asked for help. She didn't ask for warriors. She asked for doctors, supplies, and evacuation support. Earth has all of those things. We have hospital ships. We have cargo vessels full of supplies. We have personnel trained in emergency medicine and disaster response. We can be ready to launch within 6 hours. A murmur ran through the council. General Cormac, the Draxian military representative, stood up. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and 4 eyes that could focus independently. His species had been fighting wars for 5,000 years. Young human. Cormac's voice was not unkind, but firm. You speak with courage. That is admirable. But courage alone will not save you from the Kraith. They will kill your doctors before they can treat a single patient. They will destroy your supply ships before a single crate can be unloaded. Your evacuation vessels will become flying tombs. The Kraith do not discriminate. They kill everything. I have fought them before. I have seen what they do. Lisa looked up from her datapad, her expression calm but her voice carrying a hard edge. Then we'll bring more than just doctors. The statement hung in the air. Other species began whispering to each other through their translators. The humans were either very brave or very stupid. Possibly both. Kelnara had stopped walking. She turned back, hope and fear warring on her face. Commander Peterson, I cannot ask you to sacrifice your people for mine. Your species is new here. You don't owe us anything. Jake met her eyes directly. In human culture, direct eye contact showed honesty and sincerity. Ambassador, where I come from, when someone needs help and you can provide it, you help. It's really that simple. My people didn't come to space just to watch from the sidelines while others suffer. We came to be part of this community. That means sharing the burdens, not just the benefits. Moravin raised one clawed hand for silence. The Council appreciates your offer, Commander. But we must be realistic. Your species has no combat experience in space. You have no knowledge of Kraith tactics. You would be flying into a situation where survival is unlikely. We cannot, in good conscience, accept your offer. It would be sending you to your deaths. With respect, Chair Moravin, you're not sending us anywhere. Jake's voice remained steady but firm. We're volunteering. Earth's government has given us authorization to provide humanitarian aid wherever it's needed. The Velthians need aid. We're going whether the Council approves or not. The only question is whether you'll share intelligence and tactical information that might help us do our job better. The chamber erupted in competing voices. Some species thought the humans were noble but foolish. Others thought they were arrogant and naive. A few wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was something about these Deathworlders that the rest of the galaxy hadn't yet understood. Lisa stepped forward with her datapad. If I may, Chair, Earth is prepared to send the following resources. The hospital ship, Mercy, with full medical staff and supplies for 20,000 patients. 3 heavy cargo vessels carrying food, water purification systems, temporary shelters, and power generators. 12 escort frigates for protection, and 5,000 personnel including doctors, nurses, engineers, pilots, and security forces. We can begin departure procedures immediately. The numbers were staggering for such a young spacefaring species. Cormac looked impressed despite his skepticism. That is a substantial commitment for a species that has been in space for mere months. Earth doesn't do half measures, Jake said simply. Captain Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge of the UEDS Valiant and watched the stars streak past on the main view screen. Behind his warship, a convoy of 13 other Earth vessels moved through space in tight formation. The hospital ship, Mercy, gleamed white, even in the darkness, with red crosses painted on its hull. The 3 cargo ships were massive and ungainly, packed to capacity with supplies, and surrounding them all, 11 more frigates, just like the Valiant, each one bristling with weapons that had made more than one Council observer nervous during inspections. Daniel was 43 years old and had spent 20 years in Earth's Navy before it became a space navy. He had gray streaks in his black hair and lines around his eyes from years of scanning horizons for threats. Now those horizons were filled with stars instead of ocean, but his job remained the same. Protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Captain. We're receiving updated intelligence from the Velthian government. Lieutenant Ryan Cooper announced from the communications station. He was young, only 25, with red hair and freckles that made him look even younger. But his fingers flew across his console with practiced skill. Colony 7 is in critical condition. The Kraith broke through the last defensive line 6 hours ago. Civilians are trapped in underground shelters. They estimate they have maybe 12 hours before the Kraith dig them out. Daniel felt his jaw tighten. How long until we reach the system? His executive officer, Commander Patricia Wells, checked her screens. She was a tall woman with dark skin and a no-nonsense attitude that had earned her respect throughout the crew. 4 hours at current speed, sir. Not good enough. Push the engines to maximum. Get us there in 2 hours. Patricia raised an eyebrow. Sir, that's going to put a lot of stress on the reactors. Engineering won't be happy. They can complain after we save some lives. Give the order. Patricia smiled slightly. She had served with Daniel for 8 years and knew he would say exactly that. Aye, Captain. All ships. Increase to maximum burn. We're going in hot. The Valiant's engines flared brighter, and the convoy accelerated. Behind them in the cargo holds and personnel bays, 5,000 men and women felt the acceleration press them into their seats. They had all volunteered for this mission knowing the risks. Earth had broadcast a call for volunteers and been overwhelmed with responses. Doctors, soldiers, engineers, pilots. Everyone wanted to help. Down in the Mercy's main medical bay, Dr. Helen Price gathered her teams for a final briefing. She was 51 years old with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun and steady hands that had performed thousands of surgeries. Around her, 200 medical personnel listened carefully. Listen up, people. We're walking into a war zone. The Velthians have different biology than us, but the basics are similar enough. They have hearts, lungs, circulatory systems. We've all studied the materials. The key is going to be speed. We set up triage centers inside the shelters where it's safest. We work fast, we work smart, and we don't leave anyone behind. The security teams will keep the Kraith away from us. Our only job is to keep people alive. A young nurse named Jennifer Wells raised her hand. She was Patricia's younger sister, 28 years old, and on her first mission off Earth. Dr. Price, what if the Kraith break through? Helen met her eyes steadily. Then we keep working until we can't anymore. These people asked for help. We came to give it. That doesn't change just because things get dangerous. The medical staff nodded. They were scared. Helen could see it in their faces. But they were also determined. That was good. They would need that determination. In the troop hangar, Sergeant Marcus Stone addressed his soldiers. 3,000 men and women in combat armor, checking weapons and equipment, one final time. Marcus was a big man, 6'4" with shoulders like a linebacker and a scarred face that had seen plenty of combat back on Earth. He had fought in 3 different wars before joining the Space Force. His voice boomed across the hangar. All right, listen up. The Kraith are bugs. Big bugs with blades for arms and armor plating. They're fast, they're mean, and they like to swarm. Intelligence says they're used to prey that runs away, or fights with fancy precision weapons. They've never fought humans before. They don't know what we're capable of. Let's educate them. Corporal Amy Fletcher checked her heavy weapon for the 3rd time. She was 32 years old, former school teacher who had joined the military 5 years ago. Sergeant? Rules of engagement? Anything with more than 4 legs gets put down. Hard. We're not here to capture prisoners. We're not here to study them. We're here to protect civilians and buy time for evacuation. You see a bug? You kill it. Clear? Clear, Sergeant. The soldiers finished their checks. Rifles loaded, armor sealed, combat knives sharpened. Each person carried enough ammunition to fight for hours. They also carried medical kits, rations, and emergency supplies. Humans had learned long ago that battles rarely went according to plan. Private Connor Mills was the youngest soldier in the company at 19 years old. He had joined up right out of high school, eager to see the stars. Now he was about to see combat against an alien species that had destroyed multiple civilizations. His hands shook slightly as he checked his rifle. The soldier next to him, Private Jason Kim, noticed. "First drop?" Jason asked. He was 23 and had been on 2 previous missions, though neither involved actual combat. "Yeah," Connor admitted. "You scared?" "Terrified. But that's normal. The sergeant says being scared keeps you sharp. It's the people who aren't scared you have to worry about." Connor nodded, feeling slightly better knowing he wasn't the only one afraid. Back on the bridge, Ryan's console lit up with an incoming transmission. "Captain, we're being hailed by the Velthian colony. Audio only. Their communications array is damaged. Put them through." A desperate voice filled the bridge, translated into English by the computer. "This is Colony 7 Administrator Venthar. To any ships in range, we are under siege. The Kraith have surrounded our shelters. We have 16,000 civilians trapped underground with limited supplies. If you can hear this, please help us. Please. Our children are crying and we have no way to defend them." The bridge crew fell silent. Daniel's hands gripped his command chair tightly. 16,000 people trapped and waiting to die. "Send a response," Daniel ordered. "Tell them Earth has come. Tell them to hold on for 2 more hours. Tell them we're coming, and we don't leave people behind." Ryan sent the message and waited. 30 seconds later, a reply came through. The voice was sobbing. "Thank you. Thank you. We will tell the others. There is hope. Earth is coming." Patricia looked at Daniel. "Sir, I'm seeing reports from other colonies too. The Kraith are hitting multiple targets. We can't save everyone." "No," Daniel agreed quietly. "But we can save these people. And then we move to the next colony and save them too. One step at a time, Pat. One step at a time." The convoy raced through space at speeds that made the engineering crews nervous. In the Mercy, doctors prepared operating rooms. In the cargo ships, workers organized supply crates for rapid deployment. In the frigates, gunners powered up weapons systems and checked targeting computers. Lieutenant Barry Newman, a platoon leader in Marcus's company, gathered his squad in their dropship. "Remember your training. Stay together. Cover your fields of fire. Watch each other's backs. We go down, we secure a perimeter, and we hold until every civilian is evacuated. Simple as that." "Brenting, simple," muttered one of his soldiers. "Fighting giant space bugs is simple." "Sure is," Barry said with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Point and shoot, just like back home, except these bugs are bigger and meaner. But we're humans. We've been dealing with things that want to kill us since the dawn of time. These bugs are about to learn what that means." On the view screen, the Velthian system appeared ahead. 3 planets orbited a yellow sun, similar to Earth's. Colony 7 was on the second planet, a world with blue oceans and green continents. It looked peaceful from space, but the sensors told a different story. They detected thousands of Kraith signatures on the surface, heat signatures from burning buildings, and desperate energy readings from the underground shelters where the Velthians huddled in darkness. Daniel stood up from his command chair. "All hands, battle stations, launch crews, prep the dropships. Medical teams, stand ready. Gunnery, I want firing solutions on every Kraith concentration within 5 kilometers of those shelters. Today, we show the galaxy what Earth means when we say, we'll help." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. Alarms sounded throughout the convoy. Soldiers filed into dropships. Doctors pulled on surgical gloves. Gunners locked onto targets. The Kraith on the surface had no idea what was coming. They had conquered 17 species across the outer rim. They had refined terror into an art form. They were apex predators who had never met anything that could truly challenge them. That was about to change. The Deathworlders of Earth had arrived. The Kraith had been hunting on Colony 7 for 3 days without rest. Their collective intelligence, a hive mind that connected every warrior, pulsed with satisfaction. The Velthians were trapped. Soon they would dig them out of their holes and feast. This was how it always went. The prey ran. They hid. They died. Simple. Predictable. Perfect. When the first human dropships entered the atmosphere, the Kraith barely noticed. More prey had arrived. Different ships, different design, but still just prey. The collective mind assigned a hunting group to investigate. 3,000 warriors moved toward the landing zone with casual confidence. Sergeant Marcus Stone was the first human to set foot on Colony 7. His boots hit the ground in what had once been the colony's central plaza. Now it was a nightmare landscape of broken buildings and bodies. Velthian bodies, mostly, scattered where they had fallen trying to flee. The air smelled like smoke and something else, something sharp and chemical that his suit filters struggled to process. Spread out, standard defensive perimeter. Heavy weapons on the corners, Marcus ordered into his radio. Around him, 300 soldiers deployed from the first wave of dropships. More ships were landing every 30 seconds, each one bringing another 100 fighters. Private Connor Mills ran to his assigned position, his heart hammering so hard he could hear it in his ears. Through his helmet visor, he could see the ruins of buildings, the smoke rising from fires, and something else. Movement. Lots of movement. Contact front, someone shouted. Kraith. Incoming. Hundreds of them. Connor saw them then. They came around the corner of a collapsed building like a living wave. Each Kraith was roughly the size of a small car, with 6 legs that moved in perfect coordination. Their bodies were covered in dark armor-like plating that gleamed with a wet sheen. But it was the arms that made Connor's blood run cold. 4 blade-like limbs, each one over a meter long, and sharp enough to cut through steel. Their heads were triangular with massive mandibles that clicked and snapped hungrily. "Open fire!" Marcus bellowed. The street exploded with light and sound. 300 human weapons spoke at once. Plasma rifles, machine guns, grenade launchers, and heavy laser cannons all fired simultaneously. The noise was deafening even through helmet protection. The Kraith charged into a wall of death. Connor squeezed his trigger and watched his rifle tear through the lead Kraith warrior. The creature's armored chest simply exploded, spraying dark blue blood across the ground. He fired again and again, each shot finding a target. Around him, every other human was doing the same. The Kraith were fast, but human weapons were faster. Corporal Amy Fletcher stood behind her mounted heavy gun and held down the trigger. The weapon roared like thunder, spitting out rounds at incredible speed. Kraith warriors simply disintegrated as the heavy ammunition tore through them. "Come on!" she screamed over the noise. "Is that all you've got?" But the Kraith kept coming. For every one that fell, 2 more appeared. They climbed over the bodies of their dead, without hesitation. They came from side streets, from ruined buildings, from underground tunnels. Thousands of them. The hive mind had decided these new prey were a threat. All available warriors were being redirected to eliminate them. The human defensive line held for 5 minutes. Then the Kraith adapted. Instead of charging straight forward, they began flanking, using the rubble for cover, attacking from multiple angles at once. They were learning fast. "Left side collapsing," Lieutenant Barry Newman shouted. His squad was being pushed back by a concentrated Kraith assault. "Need support here." Marcus saw the problem immediately. A group of 50 Kraith had broken through a gap in the line and were now behind his soldiers. Second squad, pivot and engage. Third squad, reinforce that gap. Move. 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 Private Jason Kim turned and found himself face to face with a Kraith warrior. The creature was fast, its blade arm already swinging toward his head. Jason threw himself backward, the blade missing by centimeters. He brought his rifle up and fired point blank into the creature's face. The Kraith's head snapped back and it collapsed. Another Kraith leaped at him from the side. Jason didn't have time to aim. He grabbed his combat knife with his free hand and rammed it into the creature's joint where the leg met the body. Dark blue blood sprayed across his armor. The Kraith shrieked, a sound like metal tearing, and Jason put 3 rounds through its thorax. All around the plaza, similar scenes played out. The battle had turned into close-quarters chaos. Humans fought with rifles until the range was too close, then switched to knives and armored fists. The Kraith fought with savage efficiency, their blade arms slicing through anything they could reach. 3 Marines went down under a pile of Kraith warriors. Their screams cut through the radio channel. Connor saw it happen. He saw the creatures stabbing down again and again into the fallen soldiers. Something inside him broke. Not broke with fear, but broke with rage. "No!" He roared and charged forward, firing as he ran. Other soldiers saw him and followed. They hit the Kraith cluster like a hammer, shooting, stabbing, beating the creatures back. They were too late to save the 3 fallen Marines, but they made the Kraith pay for those deaths. In the underground shelter, Dr. Helen Price heard the battle raging above. The ceiling shook with explosions. Dust rained down constantly. The Velthian civilians huddled in terror, parents clutching children who cried in confusion and fear. "We need to start treating the wounded now," Helen announced to her teams. "The fighting will send casualties our way soon. Set up triage stations at the shelter entrances. Anyone who can walk gets basic treatment and moves deeper into the shelter. Critical cases get immediate surgery." Nurse Jennifer Wells helped set up the first triage station near the southern entrance. Her hands were steady as she organized medical supplies, but inside she was terrified. The sounds of battle were getting closer. The ceiling shook harder with each passing minute. A Velthian mother approached her, holding a small child with pale blue skin and huge frightened eyes. The child's leg was badly broken, bone visible through torn skin. "Please," the mother said through her translator. "Please help my daughter." Jennifer took the child gently. "I've got her." "What's her name?" "Sella." "Her name is Sella." "Hi, Sella. I'm Jennifer. I'm going to fix your leg, okay? It's going to hurt a little bit, but then it will feel much better." Jennifer worked quickly, cleaning the wound, setting the bone, wrapping it in a biocast that would accelerate healing. The child whimpered but didn't cry out. She was being incredibly brave. Above ground, Captain Daniel Hayes watched the tactical display from orbit. His ground forces were engaged in heavy combat across multiple locations. Casualties were mounting. 23 confirmed dead, 67 wounded. And the Kraith kept coming. "Captain, Colonel Stone is requesting immediate orbital support," Ryan reported. "Grid reference 773. He says they're being overwhelmed." Daniel looked at the coordinates. His people were right on top of that position. An orbital strike would be danger close. Very danger close. But if he didn't authorize it, the Kraith would overrun the defensive line and get to the shelters. Fire control. Load railgun with tungsten penetrators. Target grid 773. Authorization. Hayes Delta 7. The weapons officer turned pale. "Sir, that's danger close to our people. The blast radius will, I know exactly what it will do. Fire." The UEDS Valiant's main railgun spoke with a voice like thunder. A tungsten rod, accelerated to a fraction of light speed, screamed down through the atmosphere. It hit the ground, traveling at over 20 kilometers per second. The explosion was massive. A full city block simply ceased to exist, replaced by a crater 30 meters deep. The shockwave expanded outward like a physical wall, knocking humans and Kraith alike off their feet. Buildings that were already damaged collapsed completely. The fireball rose into the sky like a miniature sun. Marcus Stone felt himself flying through the air. He hit a wall hard enough to crack his armor, and fell to the ground, gasping for breath. His ears rang despite his helmet's audio protection. For a moment, he couldn't see anything through the dust and smoke. Then his vision cleared. Where there had been a massive concentration of Kraith warriors, there was now just a smoking crater. The eastern assault had been completely obliterated. "Sound off," Marcus croaked into his radio. "All units, sound off." One by one, his people reported in. Bruised, battered, some wounded, but alive. The orbital strike had been perfectly placed, close enough to destroy the Kraith concentration, far enough that the humans had survived the blast. Marcus pulled himself to his feet, every muscle aching. He looked at the crater, and then up at the sky, where the Valiant orbited. Friendly fire that actually feels friendly. I'll take it. He keyed his radio to the command channel. All units. Reform defensive line. The bugs are pulling back. Let's push our advantage. The Kraith collective mind was experiencing something it had never felt before. Confusion. These new prey had killed thousands of warriors. They had weapons that struck from the sky with devastating power. They fought with a ferocity that bordered on madness, refusing to retreat even when overwhelmed. For the first time in the Kraith's long history of conquest, the hive mind considered retreat. These humans were not prey. They were predators, dangerous predators from a world that had clearly taught them how to survive against impossible odds. The Kraith began pulling back from Colony 7, leaving thousands of their dead behind. It wasn't a complete retreat, but it was enough. The pressure on the human defensive line eased. Marcus saw the Kraith falling back and allowed himself a moment of relief. Evacuation teams. Start moving civilians to the transport ships. Medical teams. We need you up here. We've got wounded everywhere. Dr. Helen Price and her teams emerged from the shelter into a scene of devastation. The plaza was carpeted with bodies, both Kraith and human. Wounded soldiers sat or lay where they had fallen, too exhausted to move. The smell of blood and smoke filled the air. Let's go, people, Helen ordered. Triage the wounded. Save everyone we can. As the sun set on Colony 7, the battle entered a lull. The Kraith had retreated to regroup. The humans held the plaza and surrounding blocks, creating a safe zone around the shelters. Transport ships began landing, loading terrified but grateful Velthian civilians for evacuation to safety. Connor Mills sat with his back against a wall, his rifle across his lap, and stared at nothing. He had killed at least 30 Kraith today. Maybe more. He had watched friends die. He had almost died himself a dozen times. He was 19 years old and felt ancient. Jason Kim sat down next to him and offered a ration bar. Eat. You need the energy. Connor took it automatically. Does it get easier? No, Jason said honestly. But you get stronger. We all do. That's what humans do. We survive. The battle for Colony 7 lasted 18 hours in total. By the time the sun rose again over the ravaged city, the streets were filled with the bodies of Kraith warriors. Human soldiers had fought through the night in shifts, never letting the defensive perimeter collapse. Some slept for an hour while others stood guard, then switched positions. It was brutal, exhausting work. But the shelters remained secure. Sergeant Marcus Stone looked like he had been through a war, which he had. His armor was cracked in 3 places, covered in blue Kraith blood and black scorch marks from near-miss plasma fire. He had a deep cut across his forehead that Dr. Price had sealed with medical adhesive when he refused to leave the front line for proper treatment. His eyes were red from fatigue and combat stimulants, but he was still standing, still fighting, still leading. Final push coming in from the north, Lieutenant Barry Newman reported. He looked just as exhausted, his voice hoarse from shouting orders all night. Looks like about 500 Kraith. They're making one last attempt to break through. Marcus checked his rifle. Almost out of ammunition. He had gone through 6 full magazines during the night. How many rounds do we have left in total? Running low across the board. Maybe 20% of our initial loadout. Then we make every shot count. Hold the line one more time. Just one more time. The soldiers took their positions. They moved slower now, muscles screaming with fatigue. Private Connor Mills could barely lift his rifle. His arms felt so heavy. But he still managed to aim it toward the approaching enemy. Beside him, Corporal Amy Fletcher loaded the last ammunition belt into her heavy weapon. "This is it," she said quietly. "Last belt. Better make it good." The Kraith came around the corner in a final desperate charge. But something was different this time. They moved slower, more cautiously. The hive mind had learned to fear these humans and their terrible weapons. The charge was half-hearted, almost reluctant. The human weapons spoke one final time. Every remaining round was fired with precision. The Kraith warriors fell in waves. When the heavy gun ran dry, Amy grabbed her rifle. When rifles emptied, soldiers switched to sidearms. When those were gone, they drew knives and prepared for close combat. But it never came. The Kraith broke. The survivors turned and fled, scrambling over each other in their panic to escape. For the first time in their species' history of conquest, the Kraith retreated in complete defeat. A ragged cheer went up from the human defensive line. Soldiers who could barely stand found the energy to shout in triumph. They had done it. Against impossible odds, they had held the line and protected the civilians. Marcus sagged against a wall, finally allowing himself to feel the exhaustion. "Get me casualty reports," he said into his radio. The numbers came back slowly. 47 human soldiers dead. Over 200 wounded. Though most would survive thanks to the medical teams working around the clock. It hurt. Every single loss hurt. But they had saved 16,000 Velthian civilians. The math was brutal but clear. In the underground shelter, Ambassador Kelnara emerged with the last group of evacuees. She stepped into the morning light and stopped. Stunned by what she saw, the city was destroyed. Yes. But the destruction was different from what the Kraith usually left behind. This destruction had purpose. Every fallen building had been turned into a defensive position. Every street was marked with clear evacuation routes. And everywhere she looked, exhausted human soldiers sat or stood, keeping watch even now. She approached Marcus Stone slowly, almost reverently. He pulled off his helmet when he saw her coming, revealing a face lined with exhaustion and dried blood. "Commander Stone," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Your people. You stayed. Through everything. Through the entire night. Through wave after wave of Kraith. You stayed." Marcus managed a tired smile. "Ma'am, Earth doesn't do things halfway. You asked for aid. We brought it. Simple as that. Simple." Kelnara repeated, shaking her head in wonder. "You call this simple? You fought through the night, against creatures that have destroyed entire civilizations. You lost soldiers, brave people who came to save strangers they had never met. And you call it simple? It is simple." Marcus insisted gently. "Someone needed help. We could provide it. Everything else is just details." Kelnara reached out and took Marcus's armored hand in both of hers. Tears streamed down her pale blue face. "My people owe you a debt we can never repay. We will remember this. Every Velthian child will learn about the humans who came when no one else would." Behind them, the evacuation continued. Transport ships landed and took off in steady rhythm, each one carrying hundreds of Velthian civilians to safety. The cargo ships had disgorged their supplies, and now Velthian survivors were receiving food, water, medical care, and temporary shelter. Human engineers were already working on restoring power and communications. In the main medical center, Dr. Helen Price was performing her 14th surgery of the day. Her hands never wavered despite 24 hours without sleep. The Velthian civilian on her operating table had severe internal injuries from falling debris. It was delicate work, made harder by the differences in Velthian anatomy. "Nurse Wells, I need the bioadhesive and another unit of Velthian blood substitute," Helen said calmly. Jennifer Wells moved with practiced efficiency, anticipating the doctor's needs. She had overcome her fear during the night, pushed past it by focusing on the work, on saving lives. She had assisted in over 30 procedures and treated hundreds of minor injuries. Her hands were steady now. "Doctor, the patient's vital signs are stabilizing," reported Dr. Lisa Yang from monitoring station. She had been working alongside Helen all night, the two doctors moving in perfect synchronization. "Good. Let's close and move to the next patient. How many are still waiting?" 43 critical cases, over 200 moderate injuries. Helen nodded without pausing in her work. "Then we keep going." Coffee and stimulants for everyone after this surgery. We're going to be here a while longer. The medical staff worked without complaint. They were as exhausted as the soldiers. But like the soldiers, they refused to quit while people still needed help. Up in orbit, Captain Daniel Hayes reviewed the tactical situation with Commander Patricia Wells. The Kraith had pulled back from all human-controlled areas. Sensor readings showed them regrouping at the far side of the planet. "What's our status on the other colonies?" Daniel asked. Patricia checked her screens. "Colony 4 is requesting assistance. Their situation is critical. Colony 9 is holding but barely. Colony 12 was completely evacuated before the Kraith arrived. Thanks to early warning from our scouts. How long until we can redeploy to Colony 4? Our ground forces need at least 12 hours of rest and resupply. We've pushed them to their limits." Daniel nodded slowly. He hated the idea of leaving anyone waiting, but Patricia was right. His people had fought brilliantly, but they were human. They needed rest. "Tell Colony 4 we'll be there in 15 hours. Tell them to hold on. Earth is coming." He turned to Ryan Cooper at Communications. "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them Colony 7 is secure, evacuation proceeding smoothly. Request reinforcements and additional supplies. Also send our casualty lists." Ryan's fingers moved across his console, then paused. "Sir, we're receiving a message from the Galactic Council. They want a full report on our operations here." "I'll bet they do," Patricia said dryly. "They told us not to come. Now they want to know how we did what they said was impossible." Daniel allowed himself a small smile. "Send them everything. Combat footage, casualty reports, mission logs. Let them see exactly what happened when Earth answered the call for help." Down on the surface, the evacuation was nearly complete. The last transport ship was loading the final group of civilians. Sergeant Amy Fletcher was showing a group of young Velthian males how to operate the human weapons that were being left behind for colony defense. "The safety is here," she explained through the translator, her voice patient despite her exhaustion. "You flip it off before firing. The weapon has a good kick, stronger than your standard rifles, but it's accurate. Point and shoot. Don't use it unless you absolutely have to. But if the Kraith come back before we can reinforce you, at least you'll have a fighting chance." One of the young Velthians took the rifle with trembling hands. His name was Telvan, and he was barely into adulthood by Velthian standards. "Your people are warriors," he said quietly. "All of you. Even the ones who came to heal." Amy shook her head. "No. Well, yes. Some of us are soldiers. But most of us were just regular people before we joined up. I was a teacher. That guy over there, Private Kim, he was studying to be an animal doctor. Doc Price ran a children's hospital. We're just people who decided that sometimes you have to fight so others don't have to." "But why?" Telvan asked, genuine confusion in his voice. "Why risk yourselves for us? Your species barely knows us." Amy was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to explain something that felt so natural to humans, but seemed alien to everyone else. "Where we come from, everything is dangerous. Our planet spent millions of years trying to kill us. Weather, animals, diseases, disasters. We survived because we learned to work together, to protect each other. That instinct doesn't turn off just because we left Earth. When we see people in trouble, we help. It's not about knowing you. It's about recognizing that you're people who need help, and we can provide it." She handed Telvan extra magazines for the rifle. "Besides, from what I've seen, your people are worth fighting for. You've shown incredible courage through this. Your parents protected your children. Your elderly stayed calm. Your survivors helped each other. That's worth defending." An alarm sounded from the transport ship. "Final boarding call." Amy clasped Telvan's shoulder briefly, a gesture of respect and encouragement, then jogged toward the ship where her unit was gathering. Marcus Stone was the last soldier to board. He stood at the loading ramp and took one final look at Colony 7. The city was in ruins, but it was still standing. The people were saved. The Kraith had been driven back. It wasn't pretty, and it had cost them, but they had succeeded. "Time to go, Sergeant," Barry Newman called from inside the ship. Marcus nodded and climbed aboard. As the ramp closed, he saw Velthian survivors waving, some crying, some saluting in their own way. They were alive because Earth had come when called. The transport lifted off and headed for orbit. Through the windows, the soldiers could see the scarred landscape of Colony 7 growing smaller below them. Connor Mills sat with his head leaned back, eyes closed, finally allowing himself to sleep. Around him, other soldiers did the same. They had been tested in fire and proven what Earth was capable of. But more than that, they had proven what humanity stood for. When the galaxy asked for help, Earth answered, not with excuses or delays or political calculations, just with people willing to stand between innocence and death, no matter the cost. 3 weeks had passed since the battle at Colony 7. The news had spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Humanity, the newest and youngest species in galactic civilization, had done what the entire Galactic Council had been too afraid to attempt. They had faced the Kraith swarm and won, not just survived, but actually won. Now Ambassador Kelnera stood once more before the Galactic Council chambers, but this time she was not alone. Commander Jake Peterson and Lieutenant Lisa Morgan stood on her right, still wearing their United Earth Defense Force uniforms. On her left stood Captain Daniel Hayes, Dr. Helen Price, and Sergeant Marcus Stone. Each human carried themselves with quiet dignity, showing none of the arrogance that some council members had feared. The gallery was packed. Representatives from dozens of species had come to hear the report firsthand. Some looked curious. Others looked nervous. A few looked openly frightened at what humanity represented. Council Chair Moravin called the session to order, his aged voice carrying across the chamber. Ambassador Kelnara, you requested this session to deliver your report on the relief efforts at the Velthian colonies. The Council is ready to hear your testimony. Kelnara stepped forward, her wings catching the light beautifully, but there was strength in her posture now that had been absent during her first desperate plea. Honored Council members, 3 weeks ago I stood before you and begged for help. My people were being exterminated. Our colonies were burning. Our children were dying. I asked for medical aid, for supplies, for ships to evacuate survivors. The Council expressed sympathy, but offered nothing concrete. She paused, letting that truth settle over the assembly. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Then the humans volunteered. You all remember. Many of you told them they were foolish, that they would die, that they didn't understand the threat. Some of you openly mocked their offer, believing it was naive optimism from a species too young to know better. Kelnera turned to gesture at the humans standing with her. These people, these humans, arrived at Colony 7 4 hours after departing from Council space. They found 16,000 of my people trapped underground, with the Kraith hunting them. The colony's defenses had completely collapsed. We had perhaps hours left before the end. Holographic displays activated around the chamber, showing footage from the battle. The council members watched in silence as human soldiers fought with desperate courage against wave after wave of Kraith warriors. They saw the orbital strike that shattered the eastern assault. They saw medical teams working under fire to save Velthian civilians. They saw exhausted soldiers refusing to retreat, even when surrounded. The humans fought for 18 straight hours, Kelnara continued, her voice thick with emotion. They lost 47 of their own people. Brave souls who died protecting strangers they had never met before that day. They saved all 16,000 Velthian civilians. Every single one. Then they moved to Colony 4, and did it again. Then, Colony 9. In 3 weeks, humanity has evacuated or secured 7 Velthian colonies. They have killed an estimated 200,000 Kraith warriors, and they did it all while every member of this council watched from safety. The chamber erupted in noise. Some species applauded. Others argued. General Quarmek, the massive Draxian military commander, stood and raised his forearms for silence. When the chamber quieted, he spoke. I warned the humans not to go. I told them the Kraeth would slaughter them. His four eyes focused on Marcus Stone. I was wrong. I have reviewed every second of combat footage. I have analyzed their tactics, their weapons, their methods. What I saw was not luck. It was not accident. It was the product of a species that evolved on a world so dangerous that warfare became instinctive. The humans fight like nothing I have ever encountered. They combine compassion with brutality, mercy with violence, in ways that should not be possible. They terrify me, and they have my complete respect. Jake Peterson stepped forward. General, with all due respect, you shouldn't be terrified of us. You should be relieved. Yes, Earth is a dangerous world. Yes, we learned to fight because everything on our planet tried to kill us for millions of years. But we also learned something else. We learned that survival means protecting each other, that strength without compassion is just cruelty. That power should be used to help those who can't help themselves. Lisa Morgan pulled up data on her datapad and projected it for the Council to see. In the 3 weeks since we first deployed to Velthian space, Earth has committed significant resources: 5 hospital ships, 12 cargo vessels, 37 military ships, and over 20,000 personnel. We have treated over 50,000 injured Velthians, evacuated 200,000 civilians, and distributed enough supplies to sustain another 500,000 for 6 months. Our casualty rate has been 12%, which we consider acceptable, given the intensity of operations. A murmur ran through the Council. 12% casualties while fighting the Kraeth was astonishingly low. Most species lost half their forces or more in similar engagements. The Kraeth have begun avoiding systems where Earth forces are deployed, Lisa continued. They've learned that we don't just defend, we hunt. We don't just react, we attack. 3 days ago, our forces tracked a Kraeth hive ship back to its staging area and destroyed it. The Kraeth are leaving Velthian space entirely. Council Chair Moravin leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. Commander Peterson, your species has accomplished in 3 weeks what the Council believed impossible. You have not only protected the Velthians but actively pushed back an enemy that has destroyed 17 civilizations. The Council must now decide how to respond to this new reality. Do you have a proposal? Jake glanced at his team, then back to the Council. We do, sir. Earth proposes the creation of a Galactic Response Force, a rapid deployment unit specifically designed to provide immediate aid to member species facing existential threats. We're not talking about a standing army or an occupation force. We're talking about trained personnel ready to respond to disasters, invasions, or catastrophes within hours instead of weeks. And who would command this force? Asked a representative from the Trellian Republic, her voice suspicious. Initially, Earth would command it since we have the most experience with this type of operation. But we would welcome personnel and resources from any species willing to contribute. The goal isn't Earth dominance. The goal is saving lives. Dr. Helen Price stepped forward. If I may add something, I've spent 3 weeks treating Velthian patients. I've worked with doctors and nurses from 6 other species who volunteered after hearing what we were doing. The medical aspect of this isn't just about humans. It's about building a network of responders who can deploy anywhere help is needed. Medical care, engineering support, evacuation coordination. Earth has the infrastructure to coordinate all of this, but we want partners, not subordinates. Captain Daniel Hayes spoke next, his voice calm but firm. The Council needs to understand something. Earth isn't asking for permission. We're offering partnership, with or without Council approval. We will continue to respond to calls for help. We'll continue to protect those who can't protect themselves. That's not negotiable. But we'd much rather work within the Council framework than outside it. The chamber fell silent at that statement. It wasn't a threat exactly. But it was a clear line being drawn. Humanity would not be stopped or controlled. They would follow their own moral compass regardless of political considerations. Moravin looked around at the other Council members. He saw fear in some faces, relief in others, calculation in still more. Finally, he spoke. The Council will need time to deliberate on this proposal. However, I think I speak for many when I say that the galaxy has learned something important these past weeks. We learned that humanity, despite being new to space, brings something we desperately needed. They bring the willingness to act, to risk, to sacrifice for others. He turned his attention fully to the human delegation. Humanity will be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, effective immediately. No more provisional status. You have earned your place through deeds, not words. Furthermore, the Council approves in principle the creation of a galactic response force under initial Earth command. Details will be negotiated, but the concept is sound. A cheer went up from several sections of the gallery. The Velthians applauded wildly, many crying with joy. Other species joined in, though some remained silent and watchful. There is one condition, Moravin continued. Any species we help must be helped completely. No half measures, no political calculations determining who lives or dies. If the response force deploys, it deploys with full commitment. Can Earth agree to this? Jake smiled. Sir, that's exactly what we were going to insist on anyway. If someone calls for help, we answer. We see it through. No exceptions. That's the only way this works. Then we have an agreement. The session continued for another 2 hours, working out preliminary details. But the important decision had been made. Earth had gone from unknown newcomer to a major galactic power in the span of 3 weeks, not through conquest or intimidation, but through the simple act of helping when everyone else looked away. As the humans left the council chambers, they were surrounded by representatives from dozens of species. Some wanted to volunteer for the response force. Others wanted to discuss defense arrangements or exchange programs. A few simply wanted to shake hands with the Deathworlders who had changed everything. Marcus Stone found himself talking to a young soldier from the Kryllian Federation, a species known for their peaceful nature. The soldier was asking about training methods and combat doctrine. Marcus tried his best to explain, but finally just said, "Come train with us. You'll learn by doing. That's how we do everything." Dr. Helen Price was deep in conversation with medical personnel from 3 different species, discussing the establishment of training facilities and shared research. The potential for improving galactic medical care was enormous if they could combine Earth's aggressive treatment methods with alien biology expertise. Lisa Morgan was already coordinating with volunteers from 7 species who wanted to join the response force immediately. She was making lists, taking qualifications, planning logistics. Her datapad was filling up with names faster than she could process them. Later that evening, the human delegation gathered in their quarters aboard the station. They were exhausted but satisfied. Jake raised a glass of water and a toast. To the next crisis, because there will be one. There always is. And we'll answer the call, Daniel said, raising his own glass. Because that's what we do. Because that's what humans do, Helen corrected gently. But maybe not just humans anymore. Did you see how many species want to join us? We're building something bigger than Earth. We're building a real community, one that actually helps each other. Marcus smiled. The galaxy asked for aid. We brought Deathworlders. Now those Deathworlders are teaching everyone else how to protect each other. Hell of a legacy. Connor Mills, who had been invited to join the delegation as a representative of the ground forces, spoke quietly. Do you think it will last? This cooperation? Or will everyone go back to the way things were once the immediate threat is gone? Jake looked at the young soldier thoughtfully. That depends on us. On whether we keep showing up every time someone needs help. On whether we prove that this way works better than politics and fear. We've started something here, Connor. Now we have to see it through. On Colony 7, now mostly rebuilt, a memorial stood in the central plaza. It was made from Velthian stone carved with intricate designs. The inscription was written in both Velthian and English, and it read simply, "They asked for aid. Earth sent Deathworlders. And the Deathworlders brought hope." Below the main inscription were 47 names. 47 humans who had died protecting strangers. 47 people who would never see Earth again but whose sacrifice had changed the galaxy forever. Velthian children played in the plaza now, their laughter echoing off the rebuilt buildings. Parents worked in shops and offices. Life had returned to normal, or as normal as it could be after such trauma. But every Velthian who passed the memorial stopped and paid their respects. They would not forget. Could not forget. And across the galaxy, in council chambers and military academies and civilian homes, beings from hundreds of species were learning the same lesson the Velthians had learned. When Earth said they would help, they meant it absolutely. When humans made a promise, they kept it. When the Deathworlders came, hope came with them. The galaxy had asked for aid and received something far more valuable. They received a reminder that civilization meant protecting each other, that strength was meaningless without compassion, and that sometimes the most dangerous species in the galaxy could also be the most caring. The Deathworlders of Earth had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same.